Hello and welcome everyone, all those people who have joined this session. This session is AZ-204 certification track of Microsoft, developing solutions for Microsoft Azure. All these sessions are organized by Azure Easy and sponsored by Microsoft. This is Azure Easy, the community who has been delivering several sessions on Azure in past. And there are several tracks we have delivered in the past on Azure certification. These are the continuation sessions on AZ-204, and this is going to be our sixth session. And today what we are going to learn, that is connect to and consume Azure services and the third-party services. This is a part one. We have a part two of the same session on this particular exam scale. And if we talk about AZ-204, so we have total 7 sessions, and today is the 6th session that we are going to deliver. Before we start the session for today, let me introduce the session speaker. So today we have our primary speaker, who would be Ashish Raj. He would lead the session today and will help you understand all the concepts related to today's agenda. And along with Ashish, Sanjeev will join him to help you showing some labs and demo. He will show you all the demos related to today's topic. Ashish is a co-founder of this community, and he is an DevOps architect as well as Sanjeev is also an MCT. Now, along with learning these sessions, you also have a chance to win exam vouchers on Azure. So if you participate on all this session, and there would be quiz at the end of the session. So if you participate in that quiz, okay, there will be 6 winner on every sessions. Okay, and you can use those vouchers to appear for any Microsoft Azure exams. Now, along with this exam voucher, you also have a chance to win one book, which is authored by Ashish Raj, and that book is on DevOps, that is demystifying Azure DevOps series. But yes, to win all these goodies and exam vouchers, you must be registered for all the sessions, and to register those sessions, you need to go to Eventbrite, and you can go and register there. Apart from that, if you are appearing the sessions on today's quiz, so we will announce the winner in the next sessions, and we will be announcing the winner for our previous sessions today. Okay. Now there are several people who were able to learn a lot of things from these sessions, and they were able to appear for the exams as well. Okay, if you think like these sessions are beneficial to you, I would appreciate like you can, if you like that the same session should be helpful for the other community people as well. Okay, you can hashtag Azure Easy on LinkedIn and other social media, so that any new people or anyone else who would love to learn these things, that will be helpful for these people as well. Now, from this particular slide, let me welcome Ashish Raj, and he will lead the session from now. Ashish, most welcome on this particular session for today. And now command is on your hand.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Vipin. Thanks for the introduction. And before before we start the today's topic, just we do like we do for all the sessions, we will quickly have a look on this certification path that we are talking about. So we are covering this certification series for the exam, which is called Developing Solutions for Microsoft Azure. And to get this particular, when you clear this exam, for which we are covering all the modules, you will be able to claim a badge that is Microsoft Certified Azure Developer Associate. The exam code is AZ-204, as we have been mentioning in the title of our sessions. And if you, I mean, we are trying to cover all the modules, all the topic that are part of this exam. So if you cover all the sessions that we have in the past, and we are going to have one more session in in coming weeks, so you will actually go through all the topic that Microsoft expect you to go through before enrolling yourself in this exam. So this is all about this exam. Now talking about the topic that we have covered so far or is the part of this exam, we have already covered develop Azure Compute Solutions, which is 25 to 30% of the exam, as well as all the subsequent topic like develop Azure Storage, implement Azure Security, monitor, troubleshoot, and optimize Azure solution. And this is the last part, which we have divided into two sections. Part one is the today's agenda. Part two will be the upcoming session. So this connect and consume Azure services contains almost 15 to 20% of your exam. So this is all about or the importance of today's agenda. But yes, we have covered all the previous topics such as compute, storage, security, and troubleshooting or monitoring in our previous sessions. If you have not been part of our sessions, then you can quickly go to our YouTube channel. That link we have already posted in the chat, and you can actually watch all the previous session, including the other tracks such as AZ-104, which is Azure Administrator, or AZ-400, which is for Azure DevOps Services. So this is about the exam. Now, if again, this is something very basic about prerequisite of this exam. So as the title of the exam says, Azure Developer Associate. So it is a developer oriented certification. So if you are a developer and if few of the things listed over slide makes sense to you, the type of work you do or the type of technology you kind of interact with, such as if you are familiar with one of the programming language such as C#, JavaScript, Python, or Java, not on the advanced level, but if you are relating your work with one of these things, then this certification is for you. If you interact with Azure services in your day-to-day activity when you are writing some solution on Azure or when you are developing some solution and which is using some services in Azure, this is this is a certification which will help you to understand what are the best practices, how to use those services, what those services can be used in what scenarios and all. When talking about exam or the talking about the type of questions you may expect during the exam, when dealing with all these topics, you should be familiar with writing code. Definitely during the exam, the questions would not expect you to write end-to-end code, but at least you should be familiar with understanding the code. You should be able to select one of the snippet as a valid answer. So they may have a question where they can just remove one of the code line or something, and then they will give you four options with one of the correct code line that can be replaced there as a valid solution. So that kind of developer oriented understanding they expect from you. And when you are working with any service, developing any solution, you definitely will be dealing with authentication, authorization, security principles, and all those things. So those things, if at all you use Azure, so for example, Azure AD for connecting your users to authenticate and all, those things are covered in this exam. And of course, when we are talking about all these aspect, developing solutions, interacting with cloud, web comes as a as a default part, and that's where familiarity with HTTP, HTTP protocols, REST API interfaces, and we are going to talk about API today. I mean, that is the primary, I would say, the major, the focus area of today's topic. So those familiarity, what is a API, how you are going to use in solution, those basic understanding as a developer will help you to go through the topic of this exam. Now, this is pretty much generic for this exam. Now, talking about today's agenda. So today we are going to cover, API management, which is one of the service in Azure. this topic was having little bit more, I mean, this particular module was having little bit more services previously, but recently Microsoft has updated their, certification brochure or path that that actually talks about what are the questions they might be asking. And in that particular update, they have removed certain services such as serverless options and all, which was there, which was there previously, and they have kept this API management. So that's why we are going to cover this API management, in this session, and we are going to exclude those additional things which were part of exam previously. So we are very much focused on the exam. We are going to cover the topic which are part of the exam. At the same time, we will try to show, or we will try to uh, go into those topic or services in a way where you should be able to relate them with your day-to-day activity as a developer or as an Azure, Azure engineer. So let's go ahead and talk about APIM instance. So APIM instance stands for API management. API management is a service that you create in Azure, and before we create an APIM, we will talk little bit about why APIM. I mean, I'm referring APIM again and again as a short form because that's the naming convention you will see in many of the documentation, or if you go through the Microsoft certification path, or the places where you will find out the exam details, you will always see APIM. So that's where we are going to refer API management as APIM going forward. Now, why APIM or why API management? So, or what exactly it is going to do? So first of all, is it a API? I mean, what exactly the API? First of all, let's try to understand, and then try to understand how this APIM fits into that particular that particular service or that particular technology, and how it is going to help you in your activity as a developer. So first of all, when we talk about API, and if you have experience as a developer, then most probably you have developed some API, some small or big or whatsoever, and if not developed, then at least you might have used some API, either public free API or sometime internal company developed API. So what those APIs are in general, they are like a kind of a library for you that has been developed and deployed by someone else, and you can directly go ahead and consume it. So I mean, again, what exactly I mean by that library or something? So what API allows you to do, we will quickly get into the APIM in a bit, but first of all, let's try to understand, if you have not worked with API, then we will just go with the basic understanding of API, and then we will come back into this discussion. And forgive me if you have already familiar with it, but I'm just covering this aspect for some of the new people, they for whom the API might be a new word, or they may not have used API on a very large scale, or maybe in a way to understand it. What API is that, suppose your application has some functionality A, B, and C. Now there is a new functionality D. I mean, it can be something as simple as getting the weather info. I'm just the logic is this. So there is a functionality D. ABC can be something else. Getting temperature, getting something else, getting something else. You have already developed these capabilities in your software. There is a code that you have developed, there is a logic that you have developed, and you are controlling everything. Now your product needs another information, which is weather information, like you put the pin or the zip code of your location, and that code which supposed to be written should be able to give you the information back to your application. Now you have two options. Just like you have developed these three logic, you will go ahead and develop a third, fourth logic. You call it D class, D function or something like that. And you will implement end-to-end logic and whatever is required to get this information, connecting to the satellite, connecting to some third party system, connecting, getting a device or whatsoever, getting a sensor in place or whatsoever, all those things you are covering and you are implementing end to end. That's a typical way of doing it when you want to own every aspect of the logic that you are going to develop. But many times it happens that these basic things are being developed by some big players and you don't really want to get into those investments where you need to put the sensors at different locations. For example, you are a small company, you want to be able to give the capability to your users to get the weather information of their selected location. So for example, your users are residing in India, in 4 states, residing in US in 4 states. So minimum you will need some sensors, some kind of physical device in those 4 states where your users are residing, so that when they put the zip code of those respective location, your sensor should be able to get the data of that respective location to your application, and your application should be able to process it and give that information to you. Now, this is a quite a big, kind of a investment if you look at from the end-to-end perspective. But otherwise, what you can do, you have this Google, right? Google is already collecting this information using their satellite information, using their sensors across things and such, like, there are other players as well apart from Google, like, there are other services which are very much specific to weather information itself. They already have those things, and what they do is they say that, okay, you don't have to actually implement the entire code. Instead of that, why don't you, you know, forget about getting the logic, and I'm going to give you a URL and I'm going to give you a function over there, get weather, and I'm going to ask, some pin or something as a URL parameter. You pass that information and I will respond back with the HTTP message that will contain the information that you're requesting, and you can go ahead and consume it. So this is the example of a API, application programming interface, where you don't care how this information is getting calculated as far as you are getting the correct information as expected. And these implementation people, it may be Google, it may be Microsoft, it can be someone else, anyone, or it can be an internal team within your organization. They can be called as an API developer of this particular service. So this is pretty much basic understanding of API. Now suppose, now I was talking about a consumer before. So you are a consumer, someone else is developing the API for you and you are just using it. So as a user, we have been able to understood. Now think of it, let's switch your context. You are not a consumer, actually you are a developer now. So your company has some API that you have developed as a developer, and now this API supposed to be shared with couple of people. It can be internal users, it can be external users, it can be third-party users, it can be partners, it can be public users. Like Google shares some API with public users without having to have any kind of it's very simple. I mean, you just call that particular URL and you get the information. But some APIs are paid API, like, they want to tell you that, okay, this is the way you want to use it, and this is the charges we are going to ask you to pay to us if at all you are crossing this limit. So they actually put some limit as well. So there will be a kind of a plan for you. So there can be some, there can be a requirement where you have a API, but you want to control the uses of this API. You want to kind of understand how I can share this API with the third party or internal users, how I can analyze how people are using it, how many people are using it, and how can I actually make it as a paid service, or how can I actually control the uses or the consumption of this API, that's where a service like API management or APIM comes into picture. What it helps you with, let me delete this. And the first thing it helps you with is API documentations. So if you have an API, and if you have a, a kind of a, if you have used any API so far, you must be familiar with the API documentation that you have to go through so that you can understand what are the various information you can get from this API and how to get that information. For example, I have just shared an example of weather API, where you are calling the API using a pin code and you are getting a certain information from that API. For example, temperature, or the rain information, or whatsoever may be supplied by that API. Similar, you want to understand, okay, what is the format of pin code it is expecting, how to provide that pin code, what is the query URL, or what is the query parameter name is it should be provided. What are the various methods is suppose, get, post, delete, whatever. There are various methods you can use with API. If you have used any API, you must be familiar with these words. So how to use those things, that is where you don't really have to create a separate document or separate, kind of a guide which can help your developers. You can easily, just refer your existing API, and API management will be able to kind of process that information and get a help kind of information for the developers, for the consumers, and that's how it helps you to kind of ease out the sharing process of your API. The next important thing is rate limiting access. So as I said, there are APIs which are free and you can actually hit the API just having the URL in place. But many times it happens that your organization do not really want to kind of have that, in that way. They might want to limit the uses, whether it is free uses, whether it is paid uses, or whatsoever it may be. They want to limit the uses for a user, for a, for a particular organization, or for a particular use case. In that case, you might not, you will be able to do that rate limiting without having to do anything on your API API code. Your API code is as it is. You have developed the functionality. This is how you get the weather information. That's it. You just use that, you just interface this API management system with that particular existing API. And then how it works is, in a very layman language, I will tell you that this is where your APIM will sit. We will just see how to create this, and in the back end your actual API will be there. Now, all these capabilities are not part of your actual API. Your API only will be able to process this get weather. That's it. It does not have any documentation. It does not have any rate limiting logic that this is how I am going to allow, this is how I'm going to deny, all those things. But when you put APIM instance or service in front of your API, and how to put that, I will just show you, the process in Azure in a bit. But when you interface that particular API with this APIM, these are the benefits that you get. You will be able to monitor your API. As I said, rate limiting itself will give you the idea that definitely there is some monitoring happening. So you will be able to understand how people are using it, what are the most common methods, or what are the most common activities that are happening, what are the users who are using this API, how they are using it, how much time they are using it, how many times they are getting some error, how many times they are able to process the request in a specified time, how many times they are not able to process the request in a particular time period, which is committed, and all those things. Many times it happens that when you have API, you have written your API. Now this API return results in XML, or sometime it may result in JSON, or it may result in some other format as well, any XYZ markup language. your custom markup language or something. Now in those cases what happens is that you want to have a universal way of sharing your API. So you may want that every API in your organization should be able to process the information in JSON format, so that your consumer should not be kind of confused with various formats. Suppose one of the weather API is processing, responding in the XML. Now there is another API in your organization which is which is for getting the for example, which is for getting the get temperature. I'm just giving an example, get temperature. Now this is giving a response in JSON format. Now this will be a kind of a lot of serialization, deserialization process which may involve. Now JSON is becoming a de facto standard nowadays for all the kind of API. So you may want to have a single type of response that you want to send to your users, and that's where this API management helps you with, where it helps you with a single JSON format response, so you can transform your. So you need not to do anything on API level. Your API is still processing information in XML format, but because APIM is the someone who is who is interacting with the user, then it will get the XML, then it will transform back, and it will transform back the information in the JSON format, so that your user will never be able to you will never be able to know actually the API, the underlying API is actually working on XML technology, because they are always getting the JSON format only, and which is the work of this middle guy, which is APIM instance, API management instance that you can create in Azure, which is a service. I will just show you the screenshot. I mean the service, how it looks like. As we said about monitoring, this is pretty much related to it. So if you have the monitoring data, if you are able to monitor your API uses without having to develop any logic or anything on your API level, you will be able to do little bit of, or actually very comprehensive API uses analysis, and which is very, very important for you to kind of understand what are the most useful information for users, what are the most used API calls that are being called by the users, and what are the, I mean, there can be n number of analysis that you may want to do for your API. So suppose you are a company who is investing a lot on getting this weather information, and there are multiple way of filtering this weather information based on the parameter they are providing. Now you will be able to figure out which parameter they are calling multiple times. So are they calling the get weather API to get the temperature most of the time, or are they calling the get weather API to understanding is it raining in that particular area, or is it for getting the moisture information of the the environment at that particular place, or whatsoever it may be. So you want to understand how the usage is happening, how the API calls are happening, and based on that you might be able to improve your API in terms of various aspects, whether you want to kind of improvise certain uses, you want to improvise certain functionality because it is taking so much time to process that information, and since this is being used most of the time, then you may want to give a better user experience for those API calls, or it may be possible that you may want to remove certain functionality of our API, because based on your monitoring and analysis, you are finding that that particular use case or that particular functionality is not being used at all by anyone. So that kind of analysis can help you to understand how to go forward, how to kind of how to actually visualize the vision, or the next way forward of your API development, or understand how the API can be improved based on the user inputs, instead of you implementing certain things out of the box or out of the blue, just understanding, assuming things. You don't have to assume things, you have the analysis and you can understand how this can be improved. And the last thing which is there using API, as we are doing the rate limiting. right? During that process itself, you will be able to implement the security aspect where you will be able to control who can access your API. The first thing, it's not that public. I mean, if at all you are fine with the public access, that's good. But most of the cases, if you are working in an enterprise company, or if you have a product which has a considerable amount of investment over there, you might not be wanting to expose this API free of cost, right? You might want to charge some people. You might want to control the uses based on the security, authentication, authorization, and the rate limiting. Like, these are the users who should be able to use this much. These are the users who should be able to use that much amount of calls, and all those kind of stuff that you can do with the security without having to change anything in your API code. That's where this API management, the product like API management instances comes into picture. If you are to be implement all these things on your own, let me clear. I mean, it's becoming a lot messy. So yeah, so if you are someone who's supposed to kind of who are in need of all these things, and you want to implement this without APIM, then most probably your API will have a lot of code changes. You will be implementing a lot of things on the API level, and it may happen that it may not be proportionately beneficial from the investment point of view, from the from the management point of view, because it is adding more code, it is adding more liability as well, because you are supposed to then cover the quality, security, and other aspect of those additional code snippets as well. However, if you are using this service to kind of cover all these aspects such as security, rate limiting, API documentation, and all, then you are getting a platform as a service from Azure, who is handling all the all the improvements, all the code base and everything. I mean, it's a platform as a service for you, or moreover, it becomes a software as a service for you, where you don't care how the security is being implemented, how the analysis is being done. All those things you are getting it from the Microsoft itself. All you need to do is plug your API, get used to it, then you just expose it to your users. And how to expose it, we will just go into that detail in a bit. But this is what the benefit that you get with the API management system, I mean API management instance. Now, before we get into the API management instance setup, we quickly cover. There are a lot of things. If you go to this URL, this pricing URL, you will see a lot of things over there. I have captured the most useful information from the from the costing point of view that you should consider when you are kind of evaluating which tier you would like to use. So as you will see in any service in Azure or any cloud for say, you will see a lot of pricing segregation there, and that is true for API management instance as well, where you have these many layers, I mean these many tiers, consumption tier, developer, basic, standard, premium. The most useful information which you might be interested in understanding is that scale out, SLA, and the usage limit. So you will be able to apply, you will have usage limit in consumption, but other usage limits does not have, I mean other things does not have any any usage limit. And the other thing is that SLA, that how much SLA you are getting. So if you see developer tier, which is pretty much for development purpose only, does not have any SLA. But if you are picking any one of them, then you are getting a varied amount of SLA. And you can see that you can get actually 4 nines in premium or above in the isolated preview. But other than that, you will be only going for 99.95%, which is something you might be interested in understanding, because API is something which will be provided to your partners, to your users outside the organization, or some third-party applications which are pretty much dependent on those API availability. So you have to consider, because as your availability, your SLA is because this SLA is going to be a functional calculate. I mean, it is going to impact the SLA of the overall product of the people who are going to use your API. So that is, pretty much while you are architecting, while you are defining or designing your product, and when you are going to evaluate which API tier I want to work with, you most probably will be looking into which one is the one which works with you. Now, scale out unit. Consumption, you don't need a scale out unit because it's on premises thing kind of thing. We will see that in a bit, but other one, you can see that how much scale out unit you can get, and pretty much premium and above is something that you will look for if you are talking about global scale. If you are talking about some limited user, limited partnership, limited kind of limited use cases, you will be able to make it up with the standard or standard basics, or and developer is of course during the development only. But if at all you are looking at a API which is supposed to be publicly available, or is a kind of a global scale, then definitely you should look at premium or isolated preview. Of course it is preview, so still it is not GA, but yeah, I mean, as soon as it is GA, it can be also be considered as a production deployment scenario. Now, and then this is not the only thing that you will be looking at. Having said that, most possibly you will be looking at many other things, and that is available on this particular URL that you can see here. If you go to this URL, you will see a lot of other matrices that can be that can define your your pick. I mean, which one you want to pick for your use case. For example, in some of the cases, some of the features will not be available. Those things you might want to see whether those features. Sometime it may happen that developer tier will not have a particular feature which you may want even during the development. So those kind of consideration also you may make your choice between basic, standard, or premium, just because that feature is very important even during development. So you will not go for developer, yeah, in that case. So those kind of choices definitely you will have to make. Now let me go back to the next slide as APIM setup. So what essentially you require when you are setting up your APIM instance for an API that you already have. So you already have an API. We are not going to build an API to say you already have an API developed. Now you want to make use of all the benefits that APIM can give you, documentation, transforming, or security and other things. Then what are the basic things that you need to do is, the first thing you need to do is you need to first create a APIM gateway. We will see that how to create that gateway. It's a very simple process of creating this particular service, and it pretty much is same if you compare it with any other service creation process in Azure portal. So you need to first create a gateway. The next thing you will do is register your existing web API. So as I said, we are not going to build an API to say, we are just creating an APIM and then exposing your API, existing API, to this APIM gateway. So as I said, you have this APIM instance. The next thing you will do is your API was already there. All you need to do is you need to register it with your API. And the next thing you need to do is, of course, you can call this API by user, by application, or whatsoever, just like you might be doing previously directly to your API. So you might be doing it directly previously, but now you will not directly expose this. You will expose this using this APIM instance, and this APIM instance will be take care of this process of transferring information from the actual backend API to the user, and during this process it will help you to cover all the benefits that we have discussed on the first slide itself, where it can cover the security aspect, where it can cover the rate limiting, access, monitoring, all those things which are benefit of APIM. Otherwise you will be having to implement those things on your API level, because there is no in between, there is no intermediate layer which is going to take care of that particular thing. Now, let me clear this. So this is the basic step. When you are working with APIM, this is the very much first. These are the first three steps that you will do, and then of course you will cover all other things, that how to make a complex authentication scenario, how to make it more secure, how to make it more, how to transform your request and all those things. But this is the very basic step that you need to do when you're working with API M. And this is the step. This is, when you go to Azure portal, you click on create resource, and most probably Sanjeev is going to show that during the demo session as well. I mean, it's very much same what you do with any other service. Most of the options will be self-explanatory, where you will be opting a region, where we'll be opting a service name, where we'll be opting the pricing tier, resource group, and all those things. Once you have created your APIM management gateway, the next thing you will do is you will have this screen, like like you can see on the slide. You'll have a APIM instance screen, just like any other service does have its own blade. APIM will have its own blade, where you'll have a API option. You go to that API option, and that's where you can add any of these kind of API into your APIM. So we were talking about, right, that you already have a API and you have created a APIM system or instance, you can call it. Now you are registering this to your APIM instance, and that's where you do this thing. You just either you create a empty API, or you can based on your APIM, based on your API specification, whether it is Open API, WDL, WSDL, a logic app, API app, function app, whatsoever it is, you will select that particular appropriate option, and then you will be able to kind of go ahead and register your API based on your it will be pretty much straightforward option. You'll just register your API. It should be reachable, of course, on the internet. Then only you will be able to register it. And once you register it, then going forward, you, instead of you directly giving the access to the API using the from directly giving the user access to the API, instead of that, you will kind of redirect your users using your API instance. And that is also, we are going to show you how how exactly that looks like when you do that. But this is pretty much basic thing that you do to get started. Now when you are working with this thing, these are the few things you will be you will be getting familiar with most of the time when you are working with the a APIM instance. So when you are working as and as you can see, we have already kind of talked about API gateway. So when the first thing you are going to do is you are going to create your API gateway, right? When you are working with APIM system, you first thing that you will do is you will create a API gateway, and from where you will do that is something you will do with the Azure portal itself, of course. Let me, oops. So the first thing you will do is, so the first thing you will do is using API, using Azure portal, you will create an API gateway. Now from API gateway, what happens is that, as we have said, this APIM system or API gateway, actually we call it API gateway, is actually interfacing your API, your existing API, web API. Now, as you can see, it sits in between your user. Your user is here, your API gateway is here, and your API existing API is here. So as you can see, it is in between. Then it is going to cover some of the things which are which happens when a user or a application, it can be application as well. It's not that only user will call. Sometimes you have front and back end kind of processing where your application will be calling your backend API to get the information. Now in that particular thing, your API will be responsible, as you can see, will be responsible for getting the request and then forwarding it to the API, getting the response, and then forwarding back to the user or application the response. So it kind of act as an intermediate between these two guys, and it accept the input, request, and respond back with the response. This is pretty much basic thing that it does. Now during this process, it does all the verification stuff. As it will verify that whether this user is uh, is having the proper authentication to call the API, whether it does not surpass the usage limit and all those things. It kind of enforce the quota. It will ensure that the quota and the rate limiting is done properly. All those things it will verify. So it acts as a intermediary which will check all the authentication, authorization, and all those things. Along with that, it also kind of log the data, log the metadata, where which calls are being made frequently, what are the calls being made, and all those things. And during the process, it also caches certain information so that it can respond back to the user fast in much faster way, if at all that information is not really changing based on the calls. So what we mean by that is that suppose this user or app calls this API to get the supported region in Azure. I'm just giving example from Azure itself. So suppose this API is responsible to get the Azure region, and as you know, Azure regions are not something that change every day. They are, they most probably they will change maybe every 6 months or maybe yearly. There will be some addition of regions, but it's not really something that will be changing every day. Now, if you will call this API directly without having to have this API management, then what will happen? Every time this API will process the information and will get this information and will respond back. Now, in that process, there will be a lot of network processing and all those things will be lost. But APIM, what it will do in such cases where information is kind of static or not really changing every day or every time the call is being made, it will cache that information with it, and instead of going back and forth to the API again and again, it will keep that information here as a cache and it will respond back to the user. So this is also one of the benefit of having a APIM in between, and this is also one of the use case or the benefit of using this particular thing with your API. Otherwise, you might be kind of doing this on your own. Now, the second aspect is that Azure portal, as you know, of course, you are going to create your gateway using portal itself. But apart from it, talking about API, APIM day-to-day uses, portal will be something which will be used or which will be used for creating something called products. So what it is, product is, we will quickly go about this actually. When you expose your API, and we will see that in the interface as well. So when you create this API, when you have this API, and when you have this APIM, and you kind of register it, now user can actually subscribe to this API. Before that, APIM categorizes, create a product. Actually, product is a kind of a, you can think of it like a listing, which will having few API listed there. So suppose product A has API 1, API 2, API 3. All right. Now, user cannot really go and subscribe to API 1. User cannot really go ahead and pick the API 1 and use it. They have to, this API is supposed to be categorized with the product first. Okay, that it is a kind of a categorization you can think of, like the and then user will go to this product, and based on the administrator, if administrator had directly given the access, then of course he will be able to use the API, or he can subscribe to the product A, and whatever the product A consists of, API 1, 2, 3, or maybe only one API, he, if at all that subscription is approved, then he will be able to use that particular API. So product is a kind of a metadata which acts as an interface between API and the user. So user supposed to subscribe to the product, and based on the product, he will have access to certain API. So think of it product as a kind of a subscription plan you can think of. So when you go ahead and buy a subscription from Netflix or from Amazon Prime or something, you get list of benefits, right? So you suppose for Netflix itself, you go ahead and they might give you some categories of plan like gold, silver, diamond, or whatsoever it may be. Now gold is a product, platinum is another product, and the diamond is another product. Now when you pick gold, you get set of API. When you pick silver, you get set of API, and when you pick something else, then you get another set of API. Those APIs may differ based on the rate limiting. Those API may differ based on the use cases. Those API may differ based on whatsoever it may be. But you subscribe to the product. Similarly, you subscribe to the product, and creating this product happens using Azure portal. And there is something called developer portal. What exactly it is? It is nothing but a web interface where user can, a normal user, a public user can open, can see, okay, this is a product. He can go ahead and request API access, and then there will be a approval process. Administrator supposed to approve it. As you can see, there are a list of people. So initially, anyone who has access to that developer portal, I mean access as in like he can open that, will be guest. And then he will put a request that I want to access product A, which has these API. Administrator will get the request. Okay, this is one of the user who is requesting access to this product, which has these API. Do you want to give the access? Whatever the access you want to give. Administrator will approve, then he will become a developer. So he will be able to his access will be kind of his access will go from guest to developer, where he can consume the API, and from developer portal he can actually call the API. He can see how to call that, what is the something called subscription key, how to use that subscription key. We will be talking about subscription key in a bit, but these are the keywords we are talking about here, that Azure portal will help to create these product, define these product, and all those things. uh, Developer portal will help a normal guest or developer to interact with the API. And of course, during that process, you will work with products. As I said, it's just nothing but a plan, plan that consists set of services. What those services are? Those are API only. I mean, API 1, API 2, API 3, or whatsoever. Now, during all these processes, something called policies will also come into picture. We'll be talking about policies in a bit later in detail. Policies are a way to enforce governance into your API. So what do we mean by API governance is that you want to, let me clean it up, little bit messed up. So when you have a API, APIM, and then you have a backend API, and when you have a user or app, all right, you want to call this APIM, want to enforce some security, like these are the users should be allowed, these are the type of requests should be allowed, these are the type of things that should be allowed. All those kind of enforcement is possible using policies, and we will see that how it looks like, in terms of policies. We'll soon see that how exactly it looks like. Policy, we have a separate slide for that. So these are the things that you will encounter when you are working with APIM instance, there is no hierarchical structural definition of these words. These are just few words which you may find a lot of places, and you should be familiar with these words when you are working with the APIM. Some of the words are self-explanatory. API gateway, that is the first thing you will create. Azure portal, you know that. Developer portal is something where developer will interact with the API. Product is something like a plan that you kind of subscribe when you want to use a API. Groups, as you can see, there are different level of groups. Administrators are the people who have the capability to define who need access, who is going to have access and all. Guest is whosoever who has no access but can see or can request the access. Developers has the access but do not have the administrator level access. He can only use the API in a controlled environment, with a particular constraint. And policies are the enforcement. It is not Azure policy. Again, do not confuse it with the Azure policies. These policies we are talking about very much similar. I mean, very much specific to Azure APIM policy, and we'll see that how it looks like. It is very much different than the normal Azure policy, and the use case is also different. These policies only if take effect on the APIM instance level. They do not make impact or change the way you are interacting with Azure in general with any other service. So now, before we jump into the other aspect of policies and all, we will just see what are the various options you have when you are talking about authentication with the APIs, because that is the first thing that you will come across when you are working with API. Because of course you will not expose your API publicly in a very that anyone can access no matter how much they are using it, how many calls they are making it. In that way you are actually making your API vulnerable to kind of a DDoS attack and all those kind of things. So definitely you want to control the access or the authentication. So there are two ways of controlling that access. One is subscription key. So you can have a subscription key very much similar to Azure storage account key or something like that. So if you are familiar or if you have watched our storage session of this series, you must have seen that we have something called Azure storage account key, where you have primary key and secondary key. Very much similar to that in the Azure APIM. When you create a APIM instance, you get an option to get a subscription key, which is very much similar to a password or a secret information that can be provided to the people whom you want to give access, for example, developers, and they can use that key to authenticate with your API. And we will see that how to make use of that particular key. I mean, how developer actually use it. The second option you have is client certificate. So just in case you don't want to hard code the API key, I mean, suppose you have a server where an application is running and that application is supposed to is supposed to call a APIM instance to process some information. And in that particular process, you don't really want to hard code a subscription key in the code. In that case, a typical way of calling the service, is that having a certificate on the server so that you can provide the certificate information to the APIM instance, and APIM instance can actually verify the authenticity of that certificate instead of key, and based on the authentication or the access being provided for those certificate, you can, and we will see that what are the various ways to kind of check the certificate. But this is also one of the other option where you can actually authenticate your identity, your user identity or application identity using the client certificate. Now, when you use a subscription key, very simple. As I said, when you use a subscription key, you get a primary key, secondary key, which is pretty much equivalent to a password kind of thing, which should not be exposed to anyone, because whosoever has this information, they will be able to use your use this key, and they will be able to call impersonating you to the API, and whatever the uses quota and whatever the permission you have, actually they will be able to utilize that. So you can consider it as a password or as a secret information that's supposed to be handled accordingly, if at all you are using this particular way. But yes, this is one of the way where you can call the API using a subscription key. Now, this is when a developer, this is the screenshot of a developer portal actually. So when you create a APIM instance, APIM instance gives you a developer portal from where a developer can actually call the API and can actually, without having to do in their application, they can have a simulated environment. They can, where they can actually experience the API uses. What are the functions available, how to call them, and all those kind of things. And this is the screenshot of that. Now here, when you use a API uh, uh, key in a request header, you need to use this. You need to use this header and provide the key that you have in your request header. And of course, this API gateway will change based on the API gateway that you have created. And then, whatever the API path you have, whatever the function that you are kind of, trying to access, then it will be able to pick this information from your request header. It will be able to process that information. And if it is a valid subscription key, then it will be able to respond back with a valid response. But if you missed out on this particular request header or this key string, the value that you are providing here is not correct, then it will not authenticate, and it won't redirect, or it won't help you to get the information from the backend API. This is the one way of getting the information from the API using request header. There is another way of using the same app subscription key using the URL parameter. So you can, instead of having this header key, you can pass the URL parameter with the key over here. Let me clean it up a little bit. So you can pass this information using this subscription key. I supposed to green it out this one as well. So you just make note of it that in case of header, this header default header name will be this. And in case of subscription key in the parameter, in the URL parameter, the key name, the parameter name will be this subscription key, subscription dash slash key, or and then equal to the key that you have. This is the way you can call the subscription, or the APIM subscription using the subscription key. Now, when you talk about certificates, you can enable or disable that in the portal. And then based on the certificate you have enabled, you can segregate the certificates. You can actually validate the certificate identity using these parameters. So you can check if a certificate authority, if a certificate does have a particular thumbprint, or if a certificate does have a particular subject, or a certificate having a particular expiration. So you can either combine all of these, or you can actually pick one of the thing. So for example, if you think a certification authority is one of the trusted authority is mentioned, and then you are going to allow that, you can pick that particular way to authenticate. And we will see that how to actually implement this particular type of authentication with the example. This this check is being done using a policy, and we will see that how actually before that we will talk about the understanding of policy, and then we will go into the how exactly it looks like. But you can do check on these parameters. So you can check the certificate authority, you can check the thumbprint, you can check the subject, or you can check the expiration date. And this is pretty much what we do in any authentication scenario where we use this what you call where you use these certificate to authenticate the the identity of the user who is calling our service. So this is pretty much we do, but this is how you can use the certificate, and these are the two ways of authenticating with APIM instance, either using subscription key, very much straightforward way, and the other is that having a certificate, allowing that certificate to authenticate, and checking that certificate validity using the policy. We will see that policy option in a bit. Now before we get into that detail, we will talk about policies, what exactly policies are, and why exactly to use, mostly what I mean why exactly to use policy. As I said, policies are way of enforcing governance into your APIM. Just like any other policy, this is pretty much having, in a very general way, this is pretty much having the same use case where you enforce certain certain governance specific aspect. One of them is limits. You want to limit the call to your API. As I said, you want to control how many times a user can call your API, how many times, based on the subscription, based on the access that you want to give them, whatever it can be, anything, but you want to control that particular aspect. That's where policy comes into picture, where you can implement a policy, and based on that policy, users will have restricted limits or no limits or whatsoever it may be. You want to convert your response format. As I said initially, that you have multiple APIs, right? And these APIs responses are different: XML, JSON, and maybe whatever different format it may have. And you may want to transform those format in a single format so that your user will always interact with a particular format. So suppose you are an organization such as Google, and now Google might be having various thousands of APIs, or maybe more than that. So hundreds of thousands of API. Now each API should be the user consumption should be similar for irrespective of the implementation. So they might have an API which they have implemented like 5 years back using a traditional approach where XML is the response of that API, but they might have a latest API which is giving a JSON output, JSON response. But now it cannot be different for different APIs as an organization or as a product. So what they want to do is every time a user request, they will always get a universal or a particular format, and that kind of conversion or that kind of parsing you can do using this policy, and we'll see that how to do that. The next thing you can do, of course, and for security, as I said, you want to check a particular state of a certificate that is calling your API to get things done. You can actually validate a certificate using API policy, APIM policy, where you can check whether the certificate is coming with a particular subject, with a particular expiration date, or with a particular certification authority, and all those things. So those things you can do using the policy. Now, when you work with policy, you will come across two things. One is policy execution, and another is scope. So what do you mean by execution? So execution means when. So when you request a when you request a APIM or API for doing something, there are various places where your response go. So what are those places? So these are the few check marks where you can apply your policy to do or to kind of evaluate your policy and give the response accordingly, or process the information accordingly. So you can stop on the inbound itself. So inbound means that when a call is happening on your API, so when a user is calling your API, that is where we call inbound. So that is the first what I would say interface where your user is talking to your API instance to get some API backend work done. Then and there you can stop and you can process something. You can evaluate certificate, you can do rate limiting, you can do whatsoever you may want to do, but you can enforce a policy. The second place where you can enforce is backend. So backend is your API. So when you got the request, you are going to send it to the your server, I mean the backend API. You can enforce a policy there. So you did not enforce the policy on the inbound, you are allowing everything inside, but when the request is going to your backend service, that's where the policy is being enforced. And based on the policy definition, you can do n number of things. We'll see that what are the common things that you do with policy, but you can check, that is the second place where you can apply or where you can enforce your policy. The next step is when you had your user requested APIM, this is inbound. It goes to backend. This was backend. When it respond back, right? When it is responding back and when the request is going outside, this is outbound. So when request is going back, this is outbound. So you can actually control where response is going back to the user. You can stop there. You can see, okay, what is happening. The response is going into XML. Let me transform into the JSON. Okay, response is going with these additional headers. Let me strip down certain headers which has extra information, which is not required by the user. So those kind of transformation, those kind of stripping down the information, or those kind of enforcement you can do. And the next thing, which is on error, as the name suggests, when in between wherever some error happens, you want to stop there. You want to strip down the error, or maybe most useful case is that where you don't really want to send the error, complete error to the user. You want to kind of expose a very common or a generic statement to the user, so that they don't get into the backend implementation or understanding how it is being done. APIM, Azure APIM is in picture, or backend API is developed using XML, or backend API is hosted on Azure function or Logic app or something like that. So you want to, kind of strip down the traces, so that using those errors, someone cannot, kind of use your system. Again, it's not that easy to use that error to figure out how to get into the system, but still on the security aspect, you might want to strip down those things. So that option is available, and that's where we call it like when. Now the next thing is scope. Scope means when you apply the policy, there are various levels you can apply, very much similar to any other scope. When you talk about Azure, by now, if you are following our series, then you must have seen the in terms of Azure, you have various scope level, right? You have tenant, then your subscription, then your resource group, and then the service. Similarly, when you talk about APIM, the API management, you have various scopes. The first thing is global. You are providing a policy that will be enforced across all API, across all product, whichever is being managed by this API instance. Doesn't matter what the product is, what the API is. You want to enforce the entire, this particular policy. For example, you have a certificate check policy which checks the certificate, that whether this call is coming with the certificate or not, and that you want to enforce on all the calls, because all the API that you are managing with this particular API management instance, is enterprise APIs, are enterprise APIs, and you want to control these the access using certificate only. You don't want to control any other thing. So that kind of global thing you can do, or you can segregate on the product level. So you don't really want to. You have a policy where you want to check. Okay, someone is accessing this product. When they are accessing this product, so whatever the API they are using, the response must be going into the JSON format. So not on the global level. On the global level, you don't have any transformation based on the response, but on the product level, you want to make sure that whosoever is using a particular product, all the responses will go into the go in a particular format, and that scope you can define. Or on the API level, as I said, product is nothing but a set of API, right? Set of services. Again, I have told you, right? You buy a subscription, you buy a Netflix subscription, you pick a plan. Based on plan, you get list of APIs. Now you want to either enforce the policy on the entire plan, that is silver, gold, or whatsoever, or you actually want to make sure that this is one of the API which when user is calling, then this certificate check or this rate limiting check. For example, you have a product like uh, gather data, something like that. Now in gather data, you have various APIs. One is weather API, another is temperature API, another is what you call uh, bus or flight status API or something like that. Now this flight status API is pretty much basic API, and you don't really think that is consuming a lot of resources, and you want to make it free and public. Now, and there are few APIs which are kind of premium APIs, and you want them with a rate limiting, or maybe you want them to be a paid API or something like that. Now, that level, so product was consisting all these APIs, you could not enforce this particular rate limiting on the entire product, but you can enforce this rate limit on some of the API that is part of the same product. For example, the weather API is a rate limit API where user has the rate limit, but the flight status API, which is part of the same product, which user or the developer has access using the same subscription key, will not have any such rate limit. That can be done when you are applying that particular rate limit policy based on the API scope, not on the product scope, and so on the global scope as well. You are not doing that. And then on the operation level, so when you interact with API, you do different kind of operations, right? You do get, you do put, you do delete, you do post. So if you are familiar with those API operations, then you must be familiar that these are the various ways API helps you to do certain type of task. So where you want to get information, you might use a get method. Where when you are changing the information on the API, of course, provided you have the access, you have the permission, then you might be using some post option or update option whatsoever they are giving. So those operation level policy also you can enforce, where user will have any allowed policy enforcement where they are doing some operation level. So on an API level, it is not rate limiting, but you are limiting them on the operation level. So you cannot update a product 3 times a day or something like that. So that kind of operation level scope can be provided on using this policy on a scope level. So that is the difference between the execution and the scope. So execution defines which part of the journey where the policy is being applied, and scope is defining on the entirety, on the hierarchy level, where this policy sits on the top, on the global level, on the product level, on the API level, or on the operation level. A typical example of the API is this. As you can see, it's an XML document. So API policies are defined using XML document. And as you can see, it checks header, that whether header has authorization or not and all those things. And then based on this, you can see that Outbound is saying that JSON to XML always apply. So it is a kind of a kind of a transformation which is going to happen. So if JSON to XML or XML to JSON, those kind of outbound policy you can implement. So this is pretty much basic. When you go into the defining your policy, you will be able to define this, and you will be having a kind of interface. If you are an administrator of that API management instance, then you will be able to define this. Again, this can be defined on the global level, on the API level, on the product level, or on the operation level, whatever level you want to define. The next thing is, as this is a kind of authentication policy example where it is checking is a certificate, and the certificate thumbprint has this thumbprint. If not, then it is saying invalid certificate. If yes, it go ahead and let it access that. So you can apply these policies using these various ways. There are many other use cases where you can implement these policies to enforce certain type of governance. What are the common things that you must be doing? You probably do the access restrictions, as we have seen. This certificate access. You can do the authentication, of course. Similarly, rate limiting, authentication, user authentication based on the certificate, all those things. You can do allow or deny cross domain, right? Many times it happens when the cross domain request is being made, it does not allow you, or it should allow you, or those very useful scenarios where you can use policy to either allow or deny those requests. Transformation policies. Transformation policy is another example. We have already seen many times where you can your multiple APIs are responding in different format, XML, other format, JSON or whatsoever, and then you want to transform those response into a particular format. That transformation you might be using. So these are the very common use cases, but again, there can be many other use cases based on the use case. I mean, based on the way you are using your API, the way your organization using API, and the way you want to implement the governance in your organization for the API management. These are very basic things, but at the same time, very much things to get started. And when you start using APIM, these are the things which are going to be very useful. And then on top of it, you obviously you will get into the complex policy definition based on your business use case, based on the organization requirement and all. Now with that, we are almost done for the topic from the theory point of view. The next part is the demonstration, which will be done by Sanjeev after 10 minutes. So we will be having a short break of 10 minutes, and then Sanjeev will be taking control and will be showing you the practical aspect of API, where he will be creating a solution. He will be, of course, he will not be creating the entire end-to-end solution, but he will be having a API which he will be kind of try to show you how you can use the API management system in a very brief time, provided the time constraint. And you should be able to see all the things that we have discussed so far, some of the things in the practical aspect, that this is how it works in action, and probably it will give you a little bit of understanding from the hands-on point of view. And post that, we'll be having our quiz for the today's session, and also the winner of the last quiz, the previous session quiz, where we'll be announcing the name, actually selecting the name in the session itself, and then announcing the winner of the previous session, where we'll be giving away 6 Azure exam voucher and 1 book. So stay tuned. Let's wait for next 10 minutes. Have a brief coffee break or something, and let's meet again after 10 minutes, and then continue the discussion with Sanjeev on this. In the meanwhile, I'm going to open the Q&A. Uh, Probably we'll try to see if we can answer during the session, or I will post our group URL. If you are not part of our group, Azure Talk group, which is Telegram based group, which where you will find more than 10K people who can answer your questions. We will be also there. So post session we will be live there as well. So we will try to answer your question there as well, if at all we are not able to answer. So with that, I'm going to stop this for 10 minutes, not stop, but I'll be opening a timer there, and then we'll be meeting after 10 minutes. So let's connect again after 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay. Sorry. Sanjeev, you there?
Hi, Ashish. Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can see my screen.
It's loading up. Yep, we got it.
Yeah. So thank you, Ashish, for this awesome session on the API management. And I'll be taking care of like how to build an API management or an API proxy tier on top of in web app using the Azure API management. And good morning, everyone, and good afternoon if based on your geolocation. So, here we will be creating two Azure resources. One is we will deploy a sample web app from a Docker registry, and on top of that, we will create an API proxy layer, which is you can consider which is the Azure API management. Then we will do some operation like get operation, and we'll see how these things work. So if you we will deploy a web app on Azure. So just go to the portal.azure.com and click on the create resource. We will be searching a web app over here. So let's see. So we'll take this template and deploy one web app into the Azure resource. So let's go ahead and create it. And we can create a new resource group, or if you want, you can put it into your own resource group, whichever is required. So I will be creating one resource group called API service. We can make it as API service, and let's give the web app name. We can give something like web API or yes, web API AZ-204. Then we will instead of doing the code publish, we will not go for like writing in web app and creating the code and publishing it. We will take a Docker container and we will put it from the Docker image itself. So let's go ahead and choose the location is East US. So here we need to put a Linux, the app service plan we need to put will is we are taking a Linux operating system and Linux container. So let's put it a Linux app service plan. So let's name it as something like app service plan web API. And we will go ahead and check the next Docker. So the image source will be something from the Docker Hub, not from the private registry. So what we will do, I have an image inside, I have a name which is in the public public Docker Hub. We have the image, so I will go ahead and put it over here, and we will go ahead and create it. So let's go ahead and create while it is getting deployed. Let's go ahead and create the app service plan because it will take some time. So let's go ahead and search for API management. Yes. So let's go ahead and create it. We will put it into the same resource group, and we will take it as the EastUS, and we will name it as, let's name it as prod API. And okay, so that is taken. Let's take it prod API. We can give it AZ-204. and the organization name, we can give it as AZ-204, and let's give it, you can give any administration email. So let's give it as test@az204.com. Then in the pricing tier, I think Ashish gave a nice overview of what are the pricing tiers available on the API management side. So we will be, I will be choosing this consumption 99.95% SLA. I'm not going into the deep down of each of these because Ashish has explained all of these while creating it. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and create it. I think this one will take a bit of time as well. So once these are done, we will be setting up the inbound rule and outbound rule, like how Ashish explained us other things. So we will set it up and we'll set a header. And instead of directly calling the web API endpoint, we will be the request would be going through the API management or the API proxy which we built. So let's see if the deployment is done. And the app service plan is done. So let's see how much it will take a bit of time. Till then we have to wait a bit. Yeah, this is in progress. API management is in progress, and okay, let me check. The app service plan is deployed. Yeah, and once these things are done, then we will. I will be setting up some header, like when your service. Okay, let me check why it is not showing up. Okay, the API management is done, but I think. Okay, I think the web app didn't deploy it. No, so let me go and I'll create the web app again. Happen that didn't get deployed. So let me go ahead and create the web app. It should take less than. Let me give it as name is HTTP API AZ-204, or I can give it as web API. Yeah. So we said we will be using the Docker container, and we will be using the new SP AZ-204. Okay. Then next, let's go to the Docker, and we will. This would be our Docker hub, and we will take it from the public. And I have the emails and tag name, so I will be taking that. Okay, let me create it. Yeah, so when you want to set the let's say you have a microservice architecture where you have a lot of APIs and you want to put a gateway kind of thing over here, you can consider this API management as your gateway where the request will be going through this one instead of the directly calling your web API. I think you can do all the monitoring and all this thing on top of this. So my web API is deployed. So let me browse and check if it is working. Yeah. So what we'll do, we'll check if some response comes back. Let's check this response format of getXML and try it out if this works. Yeah, so it gives a sample response of this one. So now we have our API management and we have our web API deployed, or you can say your web app deployed. So now let's connect these together and see how how we can use the API management to use and call the other resources of web app. So let me go to this one and let me go to the API management. So in the API management, if you go over here in the backend, so let's go ahead and add some operation, and then we will see how we can how we can add the APIs to this API management. Let's go to the APIs. Here, if you'll see, there are a lot of options, like you can add the WebSocket, you can add the your open API, or you can add a blank API. I will go ahead and add a blank API. So I will display name is, I'll give it as something sample AZ-204. And my base in the web service URL, I will go ahead and I'll put this one. Let me go ahead. I will copy it. I forgot to copy the URL of my web app, so I'll copy it from the portal.azure.com. So let me go ahead and let me go to the properties and I can copy it. So we need to add HTTP secure. No, it's not secured one. So okay, now it already has the one. So this is my API URL, and I'll keep the API URL suffix as empty, and I will go ahead and create it. So if this is my base URL for the API management, and this is my web API URL. So instead of calling this directly, I will be go ahead and calling this one. That's why I am showing you, because the call will go through the API management. So let me go ahead and create it. So now we will go ahead and add some headers and all these things, so that we can check like how to how we can add operation, and we can test the URL instead of directly calling the web API, which I showed you. We will be going it by the API management. So let's go ahead and add in operation. So in the add operation, what I will do, I will add something called hello headers. Yeah. And inside this one, the URL will be get. And so let me put a backslash over here and save it. So then we will do some inbound processing, and we will add some policy. So in the let's go ahead and add one policy. In this policy, normally what you can do is you can set the headers, like Cassius mentioned. You can do the authentication headers. You can set the authentication headers or some headers, customized header. Let's say you want to send some correlation ID or something else for each and every request. You can set it. You can set the rule over here. So that's what I am going to do. I will be doing the setting up the headers, and what I can do, I can just in the here I can do source, and in the value I can do what I can say. I can just value Azure API management hyphen AZ-204. I can add this. Okay, so I don't need this one, and let me save. Okay, let me add. Okay, now let's go ahead and test this one and see. Let's see what is there. So this is the response we are getting back. Let's see if we see the header. That is. Okay. I think I need to check it. I set the, let me, hello headers. So here I am setting it up. This is my inbound policy, and this looks good, and this is my, okay. Okay, I think, yeah. So I forgot to override the, I forgot to check the override option. So that's why it is giving me this one. Let me save it. Now let's test it. Where is my source? Let me check the trace. That's what I was saying, showing that this is in the trace you can see the source is Azure API Management AZ-204. So that's what I wanted to show you, that the source can be set from, you can set the headers from in the API management. Instead, for each and every API request, you can set some inbound rule and outbound rule as well. We'll see the outbound rule in this case, because if you see this response format, it is giving us so it is giving us in XML. So in the outbound rule, we can set that as like we can set the policy that no, we want the API operation to be set it as it should always give us JSON. So we can do that also. We can set the outbound policy. We will be setting up the outbound policy over here. Then let's get another add another operation, and on that we will be adding the outbound operation. So we can say that let's make it get data, and in the get, and the URL is this one, and we need to provide class XML, and we need to save it. Now we will go ahead and then we will here we need to add the outbound instead of the inbound. We need to add the outbound. So here what we can say in the outbound policy, we can say other policies, and here we can change this one to the XML to JSON format. So for that, I have a rule. I can just, instead of typing out, I am just putting it over here. Let me. So here, I am just setting it up. Then what I need to do, I need to just go ahead and override the policy. Okay, let's go ahead and send the request. Yeah, if you see this, now the data is, the response is coming back in, instead of XML, it is coming back in JSON. Compare this one, and you can see that the response is, earlier it was coming in XML, now it is coming in JSON. So that's what actually I wanted to show you in. So you can do that test over here, and you can just do the tracing over here also. So these are the minimal things you can do from the API management. There are a lot of things which are available in the internet, which you can just go ahead, and I just wanted to show you how you can set the inbound rule and you can set the outbound rule. And these things I just wanted to show you in a nutshell. So I think that's for today's session. We don't have much more in this session because we were covering just the API management part. And thank you, Ashish, for providing me this opportunity to show this API management.
Okay, okay. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Sanjeev, to demonstrate the uses of API management instance. So as Sanjeev has demonstrated you the most useful and the basic way of getting started with this thing. Now let me share my screen and let's get started with the next step, which is the quiz part. Let me share my screen here. All right. So yeah, so next part is this. I'm just sharing my screen. All right. So the next part is the quiz, which you can attempt using this URL. So I'm going to post this URL in the chat as well. Just give me a moment. And Vipin will be opening this URL in a bit. So Vipin, can we confirm that it's open now, the quiz?
Yes, Ashish. So quiz is open for next 10 minutes, and from now this will be disabled automatically in the next 10 minutes. So we have 10 minutes for all the participants. They can start the quiz by scanning this QR code, or from or the alternative option is to go to this URL, that is q.azurec.com/az-204. The same link is in the chat window as well, in the Q&A window as well. All the best to all the participants.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Vipin. So this is the the quiz where you need to participate if you want to win the voucher, and the winners will be announced in the next session, as we do. For the current session, we'll be announcing just after the quiz. For the previous session, we'll be announcing just after the quiz. And what you're going to get is the next session is on 29th, which will be the last session in this series, where we'll be announcing the winner of this session. And if you have not registered yet, you can register. This will be the last session of this series, and this is the the next URL that you can also go to participate in the Microsoft, Surface Go giveaway challenge. So that is a separate thing. But our quiz is q.azurez.com/az204. Go ahead and respond it within 10 minutes. We will disable the link after 10 minutes. The next one important thing to consider is that if you are participating in the quiz, make sure you are also registered on this URL azurez.com/az204 for today's session. I mean, whichever quiz you are participating, because we have found that there are people who have participated, but their name is not there in the registration. Then we can't really include those names in the lottery system of vouchers. So make sure you are part of the registration as well. This is the criteria that I see that couple of people are missing. So just making sure that you have those names there. All right, so I'll be in mute for, and in the meanwhile, let me see if I can answer. Uh, Vipin,
So
is
we
it?
have,
Yeah, the
yes, Ashish.
quiz is enabled for public users.
Yes, it's enabled for public users and
Oh,
link is accessible right now.
okay, okay. Because there are a couple of questions where people are complaining that they cannot access.
The public link is accessible right now. Yes, link is active.
Let me check. Oh, it's asking login.
It's asking for login.
Yeah. Hold on, guys. Let me check if I think we have.
Hold on. Let me check this thing. It's available for all the people. It should not ask you any login.
Should be. Right, but it is asking. Let me check. Yeah. Okay. It seems like URL mapping is not. Just give us. Let me give this URL to all the guys. Guys, you access this URL. I think we have some mapping issues.
So if there is an issue, we can share a direct link. Let
Yeah,
me
I have
share.
shared it in the chat. I'm just yeah, I've shared the chat
Okay.
and I'm updating the mapping as well.
Okay,
Sorry guys.
so we will start the timer from now. So no worries.
Yes.
So we'll start the timer from now onward. So you will have a next 10 minutes from now, and you should be able to access this link now. Just give one more try. Yes, it's accessible.
You have updated now? Okay, now it's public, guys. Both of the links should work. Sorry for the confusion, guys. It was a mistake on our end.
So for that, we have extended the time, and you will have, so since the time this link is active, the new link is active, you will be having a 10 minutes from that time. Yes, now I can see the responses as well. So people are able to access the quiz and they are able to submit their responses.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, a lot of questions are there. Sorry, guys. Okay. Yep.
So for all the participants who have a plan, like they wish to appear for Microsoft exam, this is really a very good opportunity. Like you appear for a quiz and you have a chance to win one exam voucher, and you don't need to pay anything on that. You will, it's a free exam voucher, and without paying any cost, you can appear for any Microsoft exam. But yes, to appear for this quiz and to win this exam voucher, there are some prerequisites, like you must be registered on all the sessions on azure.com/az-204, as well as you must be registered on Eventbrite. Okay, make sure you have done that. And apart from this exam voucher, you also have a chance to win a DevOps books, which is authored by Ashish Raj, Demystifying Azure DevOps. The winners will be selected based on this quiz only. We have 5 more minutes left for this quiz. Three more minutes left from now. We have 3 more minutes left for this quiz, and once this quiz will be done, post that Ashish will announce the winner for our previous quiz. That happened in the last session. And winner for today's quiz will be announced in our next session, that is going to happen on 29th of August 2021. So this is the last minute for this quiz. Few seconds left. Post that this quiz link will be disabled. So be quick to complete this quiz. So this time is up now, and this quiz link is going to be disabled now. So
All right, so now comes the next part, which is announcing the winner. So as we said, we are going to announce the winner for the previous session. And for those guys who have participated in today's quiz, please ensure that you are registered on Eventbrite, because I mean that's how we are going to kind of select the people from the from the list where we are going to announce the winner. And let me share my screen. I think, yeah, let me share the browser here, which has the names of the people. And as you can see, these are the people. And as you can see, there are very few people. So today is one of the lucky day where, most probably if you are still if you have registered, then probably you will be getting the name. So that is the reason we have few people, almost double of them, they participated in the quiz, more than that actually, but only these people were also registered on Eventbrite, and that's the reason their name is there. So if you have participated in the quiz today, then please make sure you are also registered on the Eventbrite for the today's session, and whichever session you are participating for the quiz. That's how we are going to select. Now without any delay, let me run this wheel and see which is the first winner. And the first winner is Ravindra Mishra. So congratulations, Ravindra. We will soon contact you for the the voucher detail that we are going to share with you. So just give me a moment to capture this name in our database so that I can connect with these guys. Okay, removing the name. Okay, so the next is, oh, Anandi, you are winner for the voucher again. So, and all right, Pooja Tyagi, congratulations. So this will be the third winner. This is the fourth one. Okay, Bharat, congratulations. So this is the fourth winner for the voucher. And the next one is okay, Manohara, congratulations. You also got the voucher. And this is the last one for the voucher. And actually, I have a surprise for you guys. Okay, let's wait. It's getting Srihari, congratulations. So Srihari is going to get the next voucher. And this is the last one who will get the book. Saket. So I will soon contact you for the book. And actually for the book winner, I'm going to send the voucher as well. So this is the previously we were only sharing the book. Now we are sharing book as well as voucher for the last winner. So this is the new thing that I have done for the next session for these last few sessions. So these are the few people who got lucky and got the voucher, and those who have not got, make sure you join our next session. For most probably we will you will get your name there in the next session. And with that, I think we are almost done. I'll just have a thank you note for the people who are helping us. So thanks for the all the help that Vipin is helping us to collate all the information that we are able to present. So it's not only me and Sanjeev. So Vipin is helping us in the background to do all the collaboration and everything. If you want to connect with Vipin or you want to know more about Vipin, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. Sanjeev is our another speaker who has been helping us with all the sessions in AZ-204 series. So you can connect with him on the LinkedIn, and myself. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can watch my YouTube channel and all. You can connect me with all these mediums. And of course, the next session will be the last one. But if you have not yet registered, please go ahead and register for it. You can always, join our Telegram group, which we have listed here. One is AzureTalk, more than 10,000 people you will find there to help you. And we do a lot of interactive chat over there. So all these web session, apart from that, the next stop where you can find all these people over there, apart from us, there are more than there are 10,000 people apart from main team, a core team, we would say. They can also help you with all these issues that you face with Azure in day to day or in DevOps, that is the DevOps group. And of course, all the sessions will be hosted on the recordings will be hosted on our YouTube channel, and that you can watch on this URL. And you can also watch our previous session over there. So with that, I will not take more time there. So this is pretty much we have been doing. And after finishing AZ-204, we will share the update in our Telegram channel, that what would be our next session or the next series that we are coming up with. Most probably another exciting series. So far we have done Azure fundamental. From there we started, then Azure administrator, then we Azure DevOps, and then we are doing Azure developer. Then probably we are going to touch base upon few new areas in Azure or other cloud as well. So we have been in contact with many speakers, and we are trying to evaluate how we can plan the other things. So if you are still not part of our group, please connect with us, so that you can get the updates from our team. I mean, from our for our next session. With that, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, in this on the weekend, especially, and taking your time, your personal time to learn together and helping us to share our knowledge, at the same time trying to learn together in this collaborative way. Thanks again. Have a good day. Have a good night wherever you are. Thank you. Bye bye.